Hey now, and how are you doing? I want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today, we're going to talk about decluttering. Man, I got to tell you, I need to declutter, but I know why I need to declutter because of all the traumas that I've gone through and how what we do. So I want to bring on my friend Kitty, who's going to talk to us about clearing the clutter, calming our chaos, and probably I'm going to take away a lot of notes out of this one. How are you doing today, Kitty?
Oh, fantastic, fantastic, David, and thank you for having me. And you touched on one of my main points. You have no way of knowing it. You touched now just on one of my main points when it comes to decluttering, that being the magic word, why.
Yeah.
So I'd love to dive into that a little bit more.
So why don't you? Because I realize it. Why am I the way I am? Our limiting beliefs is something I work in. And I'm also seeing how I'm able to now, where I've built my own time management system so that I work with clients on, but also now okay, Dave, doctor, heal thyself. Shoemaker, build yourselves, get yourselves a pair of shoes. And it really is, the organization has really been what has turned my business to that next level. And so I'd love you to talk to us or at least open us up to some possibilities why we might be having cluttered lives.
Oh, good heavens. And it's a funny story how that came about because people ask me, how did you why did you start decluttering? And it's because when I was running a real estate cleaning business, I was often called upon to, hey, can you tidy up the basement a little bit because the client is overwhelmed, doesn't know where to start. So why don't you see what you can do to stage it a little bit? So I was doing that and quite liked it, and unfortunately, any clients that I did that for, they always liked it. And then I started thinking, I'm not sure that I'm getting too old to be a cleaning lady. I don't want to anymore. And started to get into the wonderful world of online coaching, and my coach said, do you do declutter in people's homes? And I said, yeah, yes. Not, and she said, well, what about virtual? At that point, there were three other practitioners in the world. This is 2018, like long before and the internet blew up. And so it worked out that it was a realtor described it as this, a less intrusive, more focused way to get rid of years and years of clutter. Why? Because you don't have to clean for the cleaning lady. You can focus on one room at a time, and we'll expand on the word one in a little bit. Now, that is not, maybe you're wondering, on earth does this have to do with the word why? I know you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us. Yeah.
Let her rip, Kitty.
Keep going.
It's because when I started, the it seemed that all I did was do physical decluttering. Like my very first client, she had an L-shaped desk and it was big. And it was not a word of a lie, 6 to 8 inches of paper covered. Okay, so you couldn't see the desk, and she had hired an assistant who was starting in 2 weeks, and she said, I have no place for her to work, so we had to do this. And our very first day, I didn't know what to do. Didn't know what I was doing. And so I said, okay, what's this piece of paper right in front of me? And she looks at me like I'm from Venus, and she says, you're out of your mind, we're not going through this one by one. I'd already taken her money. So I didn't know what to do. So anyway, she relented. Fast forward, we started to go through things, and she would see, I've got bank statements here that I don't need. The accountant doesn't need these and this. And at that, so we cleared it off. We cleared out her office. I got a couple of more clients doing this, especially when COVID hit. Then it blew up, of course, because people were like, "Oh, I guess I might as well do it now." And I stuck with the physical part. But the more I kept working through it, the more, and still now, the more I realized that there was something behind, there was something behind why people had the clutter. That was a roundabout way of getting to that.
Yeah.
But people have clutter for a myriad of ways, and clutter can hide things in a myriad
One,
of ways.
100%.
When you're, the perfect example, lady in Ohio, she's been my client for 4 years. We keep finding more things to declutter, but within, within, but then it was her, she and her husband are both DIYers, so never met a project they didn't like, so you can just imagine. The ceiling.
There's always a project ready to be had or a place to put it in. Yeah.
Amen, amen. And within about 3 weeks, she said, out of the blue, she says, I'm going to start that fitness program I've been meaning to do. Oh, okay, I didn't think anything of it. 2 or 3 weeks later, she says, I don't want to talk about I don't want to do decluttering today. I want to talk about something that my husband said that I'm not really sure that I liked. And we talked, she told me it wasn't that bad, it was marriage speak.
Yeah.
We've both been married, we know marriage speak, right? And it wasn't that bad, and I said, okay, as you said this kind of thing before, and she stopped and she thought about it. Come to think of it, he's been saying that kind of borderline funny, basing comment, teasing, for 25 years that we've been married. I just never noticed it before. And
Yeah.
then that I started to put it together, that the layers of the onion, once the physics, for some reason, I still can't quite physically explain it. But once you start clearing the physical clutter, then the mental clutter, the other things in your life start to be revealed, like things in your marriage. I've been credited with saving 3 marriages and ending 2 abusive ones. Other things like this, but it goes further than that. What people will often say, they'll have a mental block. You mentioned blocks.
Yeah.
About, I just, for some reason, the rest of my house is super tidy, but I can't keep my office clean. Or in one lady's case, her house was spick and span, eat off the floor kind of thing. But when it came to dealing with her late mother's papers, I worked with her for 3 months, and it wasn't until our last 2 weeks of working with each other, I said, I need results here.
Yeah. And do you find, so because you were just mentioning about somebody dealing with somebody whose mother who passed, that a lot of the challenges are the trauma, the loss, clutter, obviously that's always a really tough part. And I learned, and one of the stories I'd love to share with you is I used to help, as I help a lot of people. And one time I said to my friend, don't worry, I got it. I'll get rid of it all. And she goes, and because who my friend was, she goes, that's a little hurtful. I go, what do you mean? I'm going to take care of the problem. She goes, but I don't want just my things to get rid of. The things are from her husband who passed. And she goes, I go, if I found another home for them, or you pass it on with energy to love, I go, does that feel more comfortable? She goes, you know me. She goes, of course that feels comfortable. And that's where I tell people, because I have the skill set to eat an elephant. When people, so I get called off all the time with the charities of how to, what do we do with it? How do we get rid of it? I'm like, no, we don't get rid of it. Reallocate it into a new home of love and do that, and or turn the old into love. People who are in need when you close, right? So clothes, now papers are another subject, but papers we generally don't need, but people hold on to them so much. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And coming to your point about your friend with the, I gather her husband had
Yeah.
passed, and he was having difficulty dealing with his things, and I have a similar client right now. And what is her why? Oh, you want to ask the person, okay, why do you want to do
Yeah.
dispose of things, and why are you not? Or why can't you? Are the
Mm.
memories, for example, too deep? Or in the case of an office, maybe you don't really want to be self-employed. It just sometimes people will avoid decluttering their office because it might lead to success and they're not ready for success, getting into some serious woo here. But
Yeah.
we're in similar circles of energy.
Yeah,
We're
no, for sure. Because even when you're working with people with limiting beliefs who don't want to, how do you assign yourself? If you're a person who's, I broke my leg as a kid and everybody took care of you, and you might say, oh, every time you have an injury, somebody takes care of you. You might feel the need to always be sick and things like
Yes.
that. And it's how we carry it and what we assign ourselves with to that's the really powerful part is understanding all of this. And that's why I was talking about with you about the clutter and recognizing it in myself in when I get through a lot of stuff and I'm like, have I spent the time? Because I grew up in a house with lots of piles, and there's times at my house there are lots of piles. And now that I know and I recognize that behavior and those patterns, I now know I have to release some of that because I looked at thinking about growing up. There were there were papers that we didn't need. When it was time to clean up, or my friend's house when we were trying to clean up, they had literally papers from the 70s that they didn't need. It was ridiculous. And I'm going through it. It's like the old checks, the old checks, you know how the banks used to mail you back the check, which now they
Yes.
don't. But I was like, God. So it was easy to clean, especially I had no emotional tie to it. But because of that, I still also wanted to be respectful of the situation that I was put into.
Yes, yes. And while realizing that obviously they're hanging it onto it for a reason,
Yep.
plain and simple. Now, my going through my, or I have intermittently gone through my late father's things and wondering, okay, why do you have bank statements going back to 1995?
Yep.
And I understand the ticket stubs from when he was a media fella, so he
Yep.
was on the road a lot. So I understand ticket stubs and airplane tickets and stuff like that. That's a souvenir, right?
Yep.
But why are you keeping the bank statements? Is it a form of security? That wow, anything like there are a myriad of reasons. Yes.
100%. Again, I've lived through that. My mother kept my grandfather's pants. He was rushed to the hospital, and when they admit the people, they give the clothes to my mother after he passed, because he passed with that incident. She had kept it for a while. And I once was like, I'm going to throw them away. And until she moved out of that her apartment, which was not the same apartment she lived with my grandfather with, she was holding on to them. And I go, okay. It was one of those things, you pick your battles. And,
Yeah.
and again, what you do for your family. But looking at those things, when I look at them now, I'm like, wow, I wish I would have been able to help her differently. What would be something that you would suggest to help people through? Like when, like an instance like that, where they're holding on to something that's not rationally, like obviously grandma's dishes, you keep grandma's dishes if you feel that way, but something irrational, like a pair of pants. Let's go pick up my mom. She's passed.
It's, again, now, there are some times that you just have to do exactly what you said and pick your battles.
Yep.
And maybe the pair of pants are, certainly I can see the emotional charge in that.
Yep.
But if there are other things that can be released instead and and to reduce the accumulation, that's fine. It is sometimes people's why of keeping something or why not of not giving it away is just so strong that it's going to take time.
Sure.
It takes time usually for people to go through their parents' things. I did some of my dad's right away, and now it's been 2 years, and I'm finally getting strong enough to do it, and I may ask for some help with that. Someday, the mind is a funny thing. What would I do with that, as you just said, is an extreme thing?
Sure.
When it comes to sentimental items, let's just talk
Yeah,
everyday.
a general. Yeah, not this, not a pair of pants, but yeah, just
Yeah, because that is one of the top three things that people come to me about is sentimental items. Why? Because they're fraught with emotion. How do you choose between the rock concert stub with your best friend and the Shakespeare ticket stub with your parents? Whoa, guilt, minefield, hello. So how do you do that? And one client actually came upon an answer. She was moving from, I'm looking at a map of the states here, so I've got my grounding. She moved from Washington State to, you see me pointing?
I do see a point there. It's amazing how we do that visually. When if you ask me certain things, I'll be like, yeah, it's right here, which there's nothing right here. But it's amazing. But that's how retention goes, and that's one of the telltale signs of when people are lying. You could see how their eyes move, and if you're pulling it back from your memory, your eyes are shift differently than if you're being shifty. That's why, um,
Hence the term.
yes.
But on a humorous note, I am Canadian. They don't really teach geography, American geography in school. So I have an excuse, but most of my clients, once they were all coming from the States over the last 5 years, I thought I better get me familiar with the geography. So I love this. I get to learn as I go. Anywho, she knew she was going to be moving from Washington State to Minnesota. And that's
Yeah, that's a big,
halfway
yeah.
across the country, and she was going to be doing it via U-Haul. So she had an attic and a basement and at least one storage unit that she had to go through. And her litmus test, finally, out of desperation, she came up with this herself. She asked herself one day, do I want to put this in the U-Haul? Corollary to that, do I want to unpack it at the other end? Is it going to be, am I going to be happy to see it? At the other end, am I gonna go, oh, my friend, the little kitty cat statuette, or I'm gonna go, oh, goody, kind of
Yep.
thing. So that can be a really good how to assess some of your sentimental items. Is to just ask, okay, pretend I'm living across country, do I want to unpack it at the other end?
Well, that's
And
similar to my uncle once approached me, and I was talking to him, and I said, "What are you and Mark doing?" And he was like, "We just finished the Swedish death cleanse." And I'm like, "Whoa, what does that mean?" And
yeah,
so, which is sounds like it's similar in that when people are going through when they're gone, what do people want? And I've gone through that. I currently, and that's what I'm going to be doing this winter, actually, in my house. I've been the gatherer of all the sentimental items, and I talk to my girls, and they're like, "Yeah, I have no desire to have that." And that's how I got into the conversation with my uncle. I said, "Look, I have some letters from your parents when they were in World War II, like personal. I haven't read them." And I said, "Do you want them?" He was originally years ago. We were both like, "Okay, we'll scan them in, and that way the family can have them." And then I was like, after going through my friend's experience, seeing the postcards with his parents, like I looked at one and it was again appropriate language, but I was like, that's a special relationship. And
ah,
I like that wasn't to be shared. And I don't want to go through my grandparents for a lot of reasons. But no, but even the part about that was special. They were not, especially in those days, those letter writing days, they,
yes.
it meant so much more, especially that time. My grandfather at the beginning was in World War II, like in France. He was in northern Africa. So whatever letters, there's a part of me that would love to read it, but the more I think about it, I go, no, I'm just going to get rid of it. And I've given my uncle, hey, do you want it? And he goes, absolutely not. Go do whatever you want with it. But he goes, we're doing the Swedish death cleanse. And then he explained to me that's about when somebody walks into your house after you've passed on. Are they going to want it? Do they care about it? Do they care about your special ashtray that might have been from your grandparents? Yes or no, and then they're going to throw it out. And you're just doing a favor. And that's how they saw it for themselves.
makes such a wonderful point about grandparents' writings. Because something that I inherited, my aunt kept after me for quite a few months about she wanted letters that had been written between her parents, my grandparents. And I finally found them and just had a quick look and I just felt I'm feeling invasive. You have brought up something, David, that has just, it touches a nerve. I don't know if you can feel it
Yeah, yeah.
because you work with this kind of stuff, is I don't know if it was, yes, it was on the weekend. I dug out that grandfather's, it's like a portable desk that they had back in the 1930s. And my father used it for many years. And I found a letter that my mother wrote to him.
Hmm.
And okay, yeah, we're getting down to the bottom of the first page. I don't want to know. This was not intended for my eyes. I think we're getting way off topic here when it comes
No,
to.
but it goes back about decluttering. We're talking about it. These are practical things that happen that
Yeah,
people are faced with. And then what do you do? And I think you mentioned it even for your own life. If I heard you earlier, you said when you're going through your dad's stuff that you might bring somebody in. We need to have that help. We, really have to learn that sometimes things are too heavy. And going through our parents or even our own stuff, it brings a whole lot of issues into it. And how would you suggest going through it? That's probably what I need to do in my basement. Go through the family ideas and make sure that it's given to love. Like these love letters, I think what I'm going to do is put them in my fire pit and burn them to as a burning ceremony, not sometimes we burn things that we want to get rid of, but sometimes we just want to push it back out to the universe. And
yes.
whatever love and specialness that they've had, they deserve that because my grandparents were whatever we could say about their personalities, they were together to the end and they
Oh,
really truly loved each other. I'm sure that they had problems and I'm sure things might not have been easy, but it was that mentality of we're sticking through this no matter what. And
yeah.
to the end, they found peace. As I say, through all the challenges, I know because at that point I had rebuilt my own relationship with them. They went into the box much happier than they might have done if they had passed earlier. So I know that alone is the grace experience.
Mhm. And it's becoming a worldwide phenomenon as longevity, the rates of longevity are growing longer and longer. You look in the obituary section and used to be 65, 70, and now it's pretty much the norm, 95, 100, 103, and we are living longer and and working longer as well. We're not retiring usually at 65 anymore. So it is becoming more and more common for us to be the sandwich generation where we're looking after the parents and in one way or the other, we're looking after the kids and perhaps an extended family. And with that comes so much yes, physical clutter, but the mental clutter that goes along with it, and the what do I do with it? And to your point about the basement, would you like to touch on a couple of
Yeah,
practical?
sure. I'd love.
Because thank you, because many people are, I said the sentiment is one of the top three. Another one that people come to me with, another one is overwhelm. Where do I start? You're faced with the basement that has the 30 years worth of Christmas decorations. Raise your hand if you can relate, or the storage closet, if you're in an apartment building, whatever it is, okay? And imagine our parents or even people in 50s or 60s, they've lived in the house for 25, 30 years.
Sure.
Nothing's ever been gone through. So it's a matter of where do you start? Perhaps you have inherited, I'm thinking of a client's basement right now, you've inherited some of your parents' stuff. You've got stuff from when your kids were kids, and it just becomes a drop zone. Where do you start? Now, this is where my one system comes in. My one system it just came about by accident. It was just common sense. I am full blown card carrying, flag waving, foot stomping, ADHD, and get overwhelmed at the drop of a hat. Thank you very much. I am the ultimate, where do I start? Where do I begin? It's a matter of, all right, what do you do? Okay, so one room at a time. And so we've chosen the basement. Why? So that you don't keep jumping between room and room and you don't know where and what to do. One area of that room at a time, same basic principle, but niche and narrowed down even further so that not only are you not jumping from piece to piece, and frankly, you don't know where you're at any given moment, you see some momentum because many people don't think they can declutter because they've tried it before and it just gets to be too much. If you stick with one particular area, you're going to see progress. You have no choice. And so that fuels your momentum and your confidence. And the final thing is, and this is hard for people to accept, is one thing at a time.
Yep.
Meaning, yeah, to do the decluttering properly without guilt, maybe it's the sentimental items. Don't try to rush through it. I know you're an overachiever, you want it all done yesterday. Guess what? It didn't accumulate overnight, it's not going to go away overnight, and just cut yourself some slack. You'll do a better job in the long run if you just give yourself time to do one thing at a time. Say goodbye to it if you're donating it, whatever it is, but just take your time with it. Does that make sense? Is it?
That makes tremendous sense. That's what I grew up in that house of mess, of clutter. It's not mess. There's a difference. But that's what I would do is I would clean, and my mother would get angry because sometimes I would clean like a tornado. So I'd grab a corner and then I would put things over to the next corner. I would cut down and throw things out and then I'd keep pushing it around and around and around and eventually I became everything got put away. And it would drive her up a wall, but she would always like the end results. So
Right.
I think if you can stay in one area, but sometimes we need to do that or have music, what I would suggest, and I'll ask
Mm,
you,
yeah,
make sure that you're doing it in a celebration way. That's why when we laugh at Mrs. Doubtfire when he's dancing or with the vacuum, but guess what? We all do that. We sometimes all put those music into it, and when we add joy to a task that is not enjoyable, that
yeah.
automatically helps us grow.
That is wonderful. You can see I reached for a pen to write
I
that.
saw you reach, and I'm like, I didn't know if you were reaching because you already had something. But yeah, because I'm a big, and when I talk about the mindset, when you move your energy differently, again, when we started that conversation with my friend, when I said unintentionally to hurt her, hey, I'm going to get rid of it. Don't worry about it. And she didn't want to hear that it was just going to be gotten rid of. She wanted to hear that it had love somewhere else. It met with an energy that her husband had left into it. So it symbolically moved his energy in another way, much organ donation and things like that.
Very much. There's a different kind of clutter for you, but it's being donated.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's clutter. I think we're all using it, but it's always good to figure out how we move that energy. If we think it's a great visual, how are you going to move that energy differently? That when you're doing an organ donation, it's usually under extreme sad circumstances. But I've been around families who have learned the beauty of the organ donation. And when you do that, it changes lives. Even I don't know if our mutual friend, Bridget Callahan, her sister had donated a kidney at one point, and I spoke to her. I've thought about it. I haven't committed to that, but I've thought about it. What do you do if you're able to do that? And the life that you save, the life that is changed by your giving moment or in a situation. I know went down a little rabbit hole, so I apologize on that. But it all goes back to that clearing that clutter and calming the chaos from taking the items in a such situation as you started earlier, saying that do we need it? If it's something we don't need, tax receipts from 1970, That's a clear get rid of it. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
But is it other things that maybe it's grandma's something? And if you have sentimental, it's okay to hold on to it, right?
yeah, yeah, and I see, there are 2 points. First, clutter is defined as that which, or one definition is that which no longer serves you. So certainly organ donation is not certain,
That's
in
a
some circumstances, it's no longer serving you. Guilt about getting rid of something.
mm,
That's another big one, and we're talking about grandparents and things like that. Quick story.
yes.
A lady client, she carried this dining room set that she didn't particularly like through three interstate moves over, I don't know, 10, 15 years, something like that. And it always landed in the basement of her new abode. And we started working together, we got the upstairs done, and we went to the basement, which she called the basement of despair. And finally, we got to this dining room table and chairs, and she said, I don't know what to do with it. So why don't you use it? Because she didn't have much upstairs, and she said, frankly, I don't like it. It came from my grandmother, nobody really liked this woman, but I said, well, why you can't take it with you? She said, nobody else wants it, and I feel guilty getting rid of it because it's from the family, it's from a respected member of the family kind of thing. And so we worked through that nonsense. And the very next day, she got some young strapping fellow to bring it up, take it up to the curb. It went to its next happy home, I believe it was that day. And so the idea is, again, with your why and your why not, why are you hanging on to it? And if you don't have a good reason to keep it, God bless you, there are so many people who want what you have.
Exactly. Yeah, we just got to always remember that somebody wants what we have, and let's give it to them. Let's not deny them the opportunity to have it and repurpose it. Somebody who doesn't have any clothes is waiting for that jacket that might be
Oh,
and things like that. Certain objects I don't pass on, like shoes and things like that. But other than that, really blankets and blankets are a great example because you want to repurpose it and you don't want to give it to somebody because there are animal shelters will take towels and
yes.
blankets. So there's a lot of different ways to give that old item new love and be helpful.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's a wonderful point that you make about the animal shelters. That came as a big shock to me that I gave some of Dad's bedding to them and they were all over me with gratitude. And I was, their old sheets. Yeah, I laundered them. No, we go through them. If Kitty gets sick, so to speak,
Different
we
kitty, right?
yeah, excuse me, I'm gonna puke up a hairball. These things are necessary, or the Salvation Army, when
Sure.
I took some, I think it was about 6 or 8 of Dad's, they were expensive coats. He never met a coat that he didn't like. And I just decided I'm gonna drive it down to we call it the Salvation, the Salvation Army on Gottingen Street. And after church, I'll see if anybody's outside. Well, you should have seen these young fellas, because it was coming on winter. And oh, wow. So it's sometimes good to give just to someone who needs as opposed to someone to sell, like the Goodwill Value Village. When God bless those organizations. And
100%. I do jacket jives every year, and when you do that, you don't know how many people you're helping, and there's such a power. That's why I say with my Goons for Good, the charity, I say I don't. While financially, yeah, I'd love donations, but when you're showing up at a food kitchen or a coat drive and you're giving clothes to somebody who really needs it, man, the reactions. And I know during Thanksgiving here in the United States, I've fed people, and when you meet them eye to eye and you say hi, one of my stories is really just diving in. And when you're showing up as a person, one of my signature speeches is talking about how we help each other by helping one. If I give you an item that you need. And it makes me feel good that I've done that. Again, like my friend's story. And then the person who's receiving it receives it with love. Man, that's the magical part. I know we've gone a little longer than we wanted, but I would like to give you an opportunity, two opportunities. One opportunity is to tell us how we can contact you, and the other opportunity, so I'll give you a little time to think about it, is I'd like to plant one more seed for our in the magical garden, which might grow and then turn into something, a little piece of advice that might be tied to cleaning the clutter or any other advice you want to offer us.
Okay, I gave one of the gym. Do you mind if I go in reverse order?
Yeah, no, you've given us a lot, so keep going. Yeah,
Thank you, that's helpful, that's the way my brain works. And you may need to remind me to say something. And as to the gem, one of them I already shared about, it didn't accumulate overnight, it won't go away overnight, so cut yourself some slack and go easy on yourself, Mr. and Mrs. Overachiever. So that is one of the gems. And then and then I'll come back to the other one. How to get hold of me, go to declutterthebrain.com. I have a Facebook group, Declutter the Brain, where we just basically help each other do that. And if you go to declutterthebrain.com, you can download my 7 easy steps to conquer your physical and mental clutter.
nice.
And I'll be sending you that link. And I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. And YouTube, we're at 1,166 videos that
Awesome.
I've done a variety of topics. You can before 4 years now. I started April 2nd of 2020 in an outreach to COVID. So YouTube.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Declutter the brain. It's all declutter the brain,
Well,
which of course comes from declutter the space, declutter the brain.
yeah, no, declutter the brain will automatically always help you declutter the space as well, because it's the space we live in, both mentally as well as physically. Cleaning those things up will change your life for the better.
Absolutely. And as to another nugget, what about, many people ask me, what about when I do get everything decluttered? I'm afraid it's all going to come back. And I'm gonna be in the same mess 6 months from now. No, that doesn't need to be the case. And there are a few strategies that one could go through, like checking your mail, going through your mail on a semi-regular basis. You pick one. But one of my favorites is two of my favorites, and they're really short. Even, especially if you are a home-based entrepreneur or even at your office, take 5 minutes to clear your desk at the end of the day so that it looks like something that you walk in the next morning. And for me, that's 5:30 in the morning. For you, I'm sure it's very early as well. And you look at it and you go, hey, yeah, nice cleaning lady was here, instead of, oh God, yeah, I should have, who needs that negativity?
Exactly.
What? And the corollary to that is, no matter if you're living in a bachelor apartment or a very large house, use the waitress rule. I was a waitress for many years. And one restaurant insisted that you do not walk through the restaurant floor without something in your hand. Didn't matter if it was a salt shaker or a fork or whatever, there was always something you could carry to and fro. And I tell you what, you do that, oh yeah, I'll pick it up later. What did it take you? Approximately 2.5 seconds to pick up that pair of socks and put it at the base of the stairs to
Yeah.
take it upstairs, kind of thing. And that just helps to keep it under control. Also, to keep you under control, you feel good about what you're doing.
Thank you. Those are great nuggets and great seeds that we'll keep planting along the way. So thank you so much as always for showing up as you do and offering the advice. And for everybody else, always wishing you peace and love in your lives. And when you're bringing your bat, remember, be authentic today and bring awesome thoughts. So thank you so much. Thank you, Kitty. God bless.